March 12th and 13th, 2009. Madison Square Garden, New York, New York. Syracuse versus Connecticut. Here's the thing about Syracuse's epic 6-overtime victory over Connecticut. It was inches from never happening.
Shot at the horn, Dievendorf, he might have got it. It's good! It's good for the win! And Dievendorf steps on the press table. If he got it off in time, it was nothing but net for Eric Dievendorf. And the Orange may have pulled off another stunner here at the Garden.
But the shot didn't count. Dievendorf's amazing three-pointer was waved off after replay showed his fingertips still graced the ball as the horn sounded at MSG. It was on to overtime, which was just the beginning of this night.
You know, I remember the last shot, the ball bouncing right next to me. Gavin Edwards, I think he was to the left of me, came right to me. Right when I got it, put it right up. I knew it had a chance when I see it come off my hands. And when it went in, obviously I thought it was good because I wouldn't have jumped on the table.
In the first overtime, Connecticut led by 4 with 1:31 to go, but Andy Routon set a 3. Johnny Flynn went coast to coast, dumping off a pass to Rick Jackson for a dunk with just 4 seconds to go to tie the game.
Walker double pump shot not close, and we're headed to double overtime here at Madison Square Garden as we hit the midnight hour in Gotham. How can it get better than this?
In the second overtime, Connecticut had 4 field goal attempts in the last 35 seconds, but was unable to connect.
Rebound Connecticut, they've got time, 4 seconds left. Robinson ahead, Walker from 40 at the horn, no! And OT3 is coming up.
As the night at Madison Square Garden got longer and longer, enemies became friends.
I noticed this kid next to me, he's probably 10 years younger than me or more, but he had all his UConn stuff on. And we were kidding each other around, but by the second or third overtime, I think we both realized that this was a classic.
UConn took a 93-87 lead in the third overtime, but Syracuse fought back again on a Paul Harris jam and a clutch Routon's 3 that tied it.
Foul line left, 3 for Routon. It's good! He ties it with 11:7 to go. It's 98 all. This is insanity at the Garden.
After 3 overtimes, Ryan, our strength coach, and I, we were talking about when we win, how are we preparing for the next day? So that's some of the discussion that, you know, when we win, is some of the discussion that he and I were having. What are we going to do? Are we going to deviate from our plan that we normally have in the tournament, or are we going to just keep it with the way we usually do things? And that's the big thing.
Because Otto has to embody the spirit, you can imagine what it was like in Madison Square Garden at that moment. So with every overtime, even though we're completely exhausted, it is so incredibly exciting because you know that this is going to be some sort of record-setting game as the overtime after overtime after overtime.
In the fourth overtime, with Christophe Anjanot and Arenze Anawaku already fouled out, Rick Jackson earned his 5th foul and joined them on the bench.
5 overtimes, and I did not stutter. It's 104 all.
The Madison Square Garden music staff was unbelievably on point, you know, as they continued to play, you know, after midnight. We're going to let it all hang. Late in the evening, Simon and Garfunkel.
In the 5th overtime, Dievendorf fouled out, forcing Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim to go deep on his bench. Into the game came walk-on Justin Thomas.
At the horn, OT6. It is a 6-pack at the Garden, tied at 110.
It was in that 6th overtime that Syracuse did something for the first time in all these extra sessions. They took a lead.
Andy Routon's big 3 ball, got it for the first lead in overtime. Outside the lane left, it's Harris, turns to face, puts on the deck, spins to the basket. This time he finishes, and the Orange lead by 5. Johnny Flynn dribbles out the clock into the front court, 2 seconds left, now 1, and all it took was 6. 6 overtimes, and the Orange outlast Connecticut.
Syracuse defeated UConn 127-117 in 6 overtimes. The game began at 9:36 p.m. on March 12th and ended at 1:22 a.m. in the wee morning hours of March 13th. 244 points were scored. 226 minutes were played. An instant classic was born.
I can't even feel my legs right now. You know, it was a tough game. We battled it out. It's just great that we got the victory.
You know, the tensions were already high going in, and then so now we add in, you know, the Big East tournament, Madison Square Garden. Syracuse, UConn, the fan base, it's you know, Syracuse is New York's team, but UConn, Hartford, they're like an hour and a half from the city, you know what I mean? So it's real close, and both fan bases, you know, they show out. So, you know, it was the perfect setup.
So it's 1:30 in the morning in New York City, and you just watched one of the most epic college basketball games of all time. What do you do now?
It was no big deal. It was, you know, 2 o'clock, and it may as well have been 9 or 10. And we walked down the street and had chicken fingers and a couple of beers and get back to the hotel at 4 a.m. And it was perfectly reasonable for people to be out and walking around the hotel at 4 a.m.
John and Chris Grew of local t-shirt company Holy Shirt got an idea in the wee hours of the morning after the game that became the best-selling t-shirt in the history of Syracuse, New York.
When that game ended, it was completely amazing. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I was out of breath. My voice was shot, and I was exhausted. I called my brother and said, I feel like I've just run a marathon. We got to do a shirt for this. And we riffed a little bit. Chris came up with the phrase Marathon Men, and he continued to work on it after that.
Syracuse's win over Connecticut at Madison Square Garden on March 12th and 13th, 2009 will live on forever as one of the great college basketball games of all time. And to think, it was about a half second away from being just another buzzer beater.
Would have been a lot better if they just counted Eric's shot and we could have gone home 2 hours ago. But
those are the memories that I specifically, more so from the game. It was just after what we were doing. I just remember everybody being like, man, wow, what a crazy game. Just mentally and emotionally just exhausted. And then the next night, play West Virginia in the Garden, going to overtime again, you know, and end up winning that game. So people don't realize that, you know, it was like 3 games in 2 days.